I'm Carol Owens, and this is Stockbridge Updates. Well, this period, there's a kerfuffle, but it's worth talking about. It has to do with the government and the press. Now, the other day, I received a note from a reader who happens to work for the government, and that person was very disappointed in Stockbridge Updates. And that was followed by 2 or 3 people writing that they loved it, and one person stopping me at the post office. And I think that's the way it is. I think by and large, the people appreciate the press. They want to know what's going on. They want to hear all about it. The government's a little ambivalent. It's kind of like the 3 branches of government: legislative, judiciary, and executive. And you've heard all about the checks and balances, and one is supposed to check the other. And I think in a similar way, the press checks the government checks the press. So of all the things that happen with, gee whiz, I'm disappointed, and I don't agree with the position you took, and so on, and the compliments, I'm fine with all of it. But I did receive something that was upsetting, and that was from the town administrator, and I sure hope that we can work this out, that we can talk it through, because he wrote that maybe there would be a conflict or an ethical concern of some kind or another where he couldn't continue to write for Stockbridge Updates. You'll remember we have columns from the desk of the Stockbridge Police Chief, from the desk of the Stockbridge Town Administrator, from the desk of the Monument Mountain School Superintendent, and we treasure these. Not for us, not for Stockbridge Updates, but because they bring news and they bring the word to the people who are reading directly from those working in the government. So important. So look for it, and I hope you see a return of the From the Desk of. Now, to move to something very different and very exciting, I want to welcome a wonderful guest, Kevin Foran, lovingly known as Moose. Welcome.
Thank you, Carol.
And my
Thank you very
first
much.
question is, how did you get the nickname Moose?
Well, back in 1977, I was a little bit bigger in stature, about the size of a moose, I guess. And I was working on a landscape project with a very close friend, and we were separated by about 100 feet. We had our backs to each other on a project, and I heard him yell out, "Moose," very loudly, and I thought that there was a moose running between us.
Yeah.
And I jumped up from where I was kneeling down, and I faced him, and he started laughing and laughing and laughing, and he said, "That's your new name, Moose." And it stuck for all these years.
So he was like teasing you or something.
Yeah, it was a fun thing. He said, "Yeah, he's a moose." You know, he called me. Now, kind of funny too, because he had a child. Him and his wife had a child, a son, and I got a chance to be with him in his early age, and I nicknamed him Little Moose.
That was cute.
So our relationship, and he's a very successful businessman right now, our relationship as we talk to each other, I call him Little Moose and he calls me Big Moose. So it was a way to come back to the person who gave me the name. Yeah.
How many years were you at Kripalu? And we're going to talk about where Kripalu was situated. How many years were you there?
Well, you know, when I add the years up, I believe it comes up to roughly 43 years, 42
So for
years.
4 decades, you have been interested in our beloved Shadowbrook.
Right.
Okay, so Kripalu is built on the site of Shadowbrook. And let's talk about Shadowbrook a minute. First, it was built by Anson Phelps, Mr. and Mrs. Anson Phelps.
Correct. Yeah.
Stokes. You know how rarely we know the first name of a wife from the 19th century? Because she's always referred to. There's only 3 times when her first name is used. When she's born and baptized, when she marries, and when she dies. Now, what was her first name?
I don't know.
Caroline.
Caroline.
Okay. So
Great.
now, I've heard you say that Mrs. Anson Phelps Stokes was the boss at home.
Yeah, I've, from my knowledge, from what I've read, is that she was, I'll say it this way, I believe she wore the pants in the family.
Well, I think it was pretty common in
Yeah.
the 19th century. You know, the women had no role outside the home. So they were pretty commonly
Yeah.
the boss inside the home.
She managed the estate and the affairs that were happening in the estate.
Absolutely. And you know, Shadowbrook was the largest piece of domestic architecture built in the United States of America. It was built between 1891 and 1893, and it remained the largest until George Washington Vanderbilt completed Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina.
That's interesting. I
Biltmore
mean,
was bigger, and that was 1895.
I think there's a little humor to that too, because it was always being referred to as the summer cottage.
I know.
Wow, that's interesting, you know.
Well, I wrote a book called The Berkshire Cottages, and I explained
Oh yeah, right.
in that book why they called them cottages. And Moose, they called them cottages for the same reason they called the Atlantic Ocean the pond. They believed in verbal understatement.
This,
Yeah.
Well, the scope of how they've managed and how they viewed the world was so large to them. It probably was a cottage.
Yeah, you know, I think you're seeing a detail shot of one of the exterior areas in Shadowbrook. And I love this picture because it shows you the size. That picture, which is on your screen now, that area is probably 2,000 square feet, which is larger than the average American home. And that is one teeny tiny little part of the Shadowbrook house. So 2,000 square feet is a small portion, and they say that Shadowbrook was the size of 2 football fields on the ground.
I mean, that would be, from that picture we had just seen there, what you can see from that picture is the overlooking of the Stockbridge Bowl. But
well, yeah, look through the archway.
Right, yeah, and
it's a little bit, you know, fuzzier because it's more distant, but you can see that there was a long view,
Yeah.
and you're so right. In that view would have been the lake, but also that view would have gone as far as Monument Mountain.
that's correct.
Yeah.
On the scale of things, that porch right there might be considered like a mudroom in someone else's home.
Yes, comparatively speaking, yes. Very, very funny. Well, you know the story
Yeah.
about the telegram that came, Mother, may I bring the class of
exactly.
93. And she misread it as a class consisting of 93 students. Obviously, the son meant the class graduating in 1893. Nonetheless, she telegraphed back, please reduce the number to 50 as I have other house guests that weekend, which gives you an idea of what that house could accommodate.
And just going back to Mrs. Stokes, her involvement with managing the estate, she was the one who would actually design the menus in advance of all her guests who were coming.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, she was
Yes,
right
yes,
then.
yes.
Not maybe micromanaging is the wrong word to use, but she was very involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I think micromanaging is very, that's very accurate, and not in any negative way. It is
Yeah, no,
not
no.
being used as a pejorative. They had a room in the house called the morning room, and in the morning room there was always a desk. That's the room where the woman of the house, who was the boss of the works, would meet. It was situated so the gardener could come to the door or the window and meet and find out what he should be cutting or
All right.
providing for the garden or flowers for the table. And the cook could come in, and certainly the butler, and all the details and so forth planned for the day. They said that running one of these houses was equivalent to running a filled five-star hotel
Oh.
every day. Every day. Now, how we met, you reached out for help with this little gem right here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is the Shadowbrook Gatehouse.
Well, you know, it's when I came to manage or to be stewarding the estate in 1983, the property, after the Jesuits had left, had been abandoned. It sounds like a harsh word. Unfortunately, they weren't successful here, but had been let go for 12, 13 years.
Absolutely.
And
the one thing a house can't stand is to be empty.
And when I came on the scene, I was charged with resurrecting, or I would say reclaiming and managing the operations for Kripalu, reclaiming the landscape. And this was one of the first projects that I wanted to see corrected, because I could not see that house because of the...
Well, you're right. We're gonna kind of take you through
Okay,
what
great.
happened and illustrate what you were
Sure.
saying. But just to stick with that a minute,
Mm-hmm.
there in the other picture the gates were open. Now, in this picture, now they're open. You can sort of see them.
Right.
Now they're closed. Look how pretty.
Right,
This was a beautiful entrance to Shadowbrook.
right.
Stately in every way. And then, as you were explaining to us, if we look at the next image, okay, it begins to deteriorate. You can look in this picture, the gates have mysteriously disappeared. There are no windows. I don't see a front door, do you?
No, no.
No. But at least we have four walls. And then if you just advance it once more,
The scope of the work that I was
Yeah.
challenged by.
Stop right there 1 second, and then I want to hear everything you're saying. This is what we have today.
Right.
And at the time that you contacted me, and I'm going to just speak a minute about that, this is the condition we are faced with right now. So we only have 3 extant walls of the 4, and I'm going to ask you about that. And the reason you were reaching out, I formed in 2025, I formed a nonprofit called Berkshire Preservation, Inc. We are a 501c3 with a very impressive board of directors. We are 78 days old, that's the total, and we already have 4 clients. So I think for once, magic happened, and we actually established a corporation that's going to meet a need. And this is the example of the need, and you were the man that brought it to our attention. Thank you. And now please tell us, you watched this deteriorate.
Yes, and the previous picture was my first stab at cleaning up what had been overgrown, and I only had enough time to budget in to take care of it in this way, and I made it somewhat presentable. However, other priorities came into play. and it stayed like that. We could never go any further with it.
Yeah.
Now, subsequently, years later, the township, Lenox Township, had put in a 10-inch water main going up the mountain road.
Right, and now show what happened in the next picture.
What had happened, and the ground, the substructure underneath was shaken up and disheveled, and it determined this wall to cave in.
Because of the proximity, I think one
Yeah,
of the problems, if you can see where it's black, and then look where there's snow and the fallen fence, that's the distance between that fourth wall and the road. And if you're standing there, I think it's no more than 2 feet.
I would guess maybe 5 at the most.
But at
the most.
It widens.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it goes narrower, narrower, wider, wider, and I think ultimately 5 feet. I think you're correct.
So after it had collapsed like that, and this was happening, it started to collapse during the pandemic. So their construction work was all repaired, but then it later on fell in because it was neglected, and it stayed like that for a number of years because of priorities. Now, what was important to me personally, and this is my thoughts and feelings, is that because of the location of that facility, of that old house, it is what I consider to be the gateway into not just Kripalu, but into the town of Stockbridge.
Oh, marvelous.
From Lenox, when you're coming down, you're passing Tanglewood, this would be the first structure that you would see, to my knowledge, that is in Stockbridge.
Let me just insert here. You're so right. Let me explain to you where that is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the Over the Mountain Road and 183 meet. And this piece of land comes to a triangle with 183 on one side and the road that goes over the mountain to West Stockbridge on the other. I would say, Moose, that 1 million people easily pass that corner per year. People going from West Stockbridge to Lenox, from West Stockbridge to Stockbridge,
certainly.
from Stockbridge to Lenox, from anywhere to Tanglewood, which is already hundreds of thousands of people in a season, from anywhere else to Shakespeare and Company, to the restaurants downtown Lenox, or to Prospect Hill Road and the back entrance into Stockbridge.
Exactly. I mean, I would often, managing the estate, see a number of people would park their cars on the driveways and go up there and snap pictures, take pictures of the facility. And they would probe around looking inside, and specifically they would love to get a picture of the birch tree growing out of the chimney, But again, coming back to the importance of it if it being cared for in an appropriate way, which we hope will happen, is that it is a reflection on the value, in my opinion, maybe I'm too dramatic about this, but it is a reflection on the town and Kripalu.
I think...
Because showing the care and the conservative nature for the land, it's also, I'll just leave it right there.
Buildings are the repository of our memories. And if you wonder, what is she talking about? All of us have gone to a building and said, that's the elementary school I went to. Or there's the home I was born in. And that is the way the story of our life begins. And when it's a building of such importance as Shadowbrook was, and the meaning of Shadowbrook to this community, and the gatehouse to Shadowbrook, it's architecturally important, it was economically important, it was socioculturally important. The story that unwinds is the story of us. And to be able to begin by pointing to a 134-year-old building and say, that was the gatehouse to the largest private home in the United States of
Right.
America. Let me tell you the story.
Right.
So Berkshire Preservation Inc., not surprisingly, was organized to preserve the Berkshires, and that means open land, but that means our historical structures. And it also means our life in very interesting ways, supporting ambulance companies,
Sure.
supporting firehouses, supporting medical services. Berkshire Medical Services needs a lot of support right now.
You know,
Let me go back to something you said before, and if you would be kind enough to walk us through the property at Shadowbrook.
well, as I mentioned just a moment ago, that would be
That's it for the pictures. Thank you.
okay. If you were arriving, let's say, to Kripalu, your first entry onto the property is past that gatehouse. Unless you're coming from the south, and you would come up the main front drive.
And to the left of that would be the farm, which
Right.
is now, there are 6
Berkshire,
buildings
yeah.
on the Shadowbrook farm. And those 6 buildings, which are original, actually they predated the house. And they are now a historic district
Right.
all their own. And what I'm so interested in from you, Moose, because you're something of an expert now, is what are the pieces of Shadowbrook that still remain?
Well, you would see a number of the landscape features, that were designed and implemented by either Andrew Carnegie, Anson Phillips Stokes, or some cases the Jesuits. It's a little bit challenging to see the landscapes how they overlapped as to who was responsible for what. But what is remaining are the retaining walls, the foundations of the facility. The building itself, after it had been burnt down, the walls were caved into the basement and then covered over, and has become a flat lawn of just about an acre. Underneath,
But you can still see the outline.
you can see the outline of the foundations, and maybe you can, in one of the pictures, you could see that. But the walls are, I'm going to say, relatively intact. They are showing signs of some deterioration because of poor drainage. So there's a concern about that. But if you were to walk around the foundation of the footprint of where the house stood, it's a mind-boggler to me that it's held up for this long.
And the size of it.
Oh my gosh, the construction technology wasn't what it is today. And I just keep thinking, when I'm walking around those retaining walls and with the capstones, it's just phenomenal. The labor of love that went into that.
I have to tell you something. So, one of the things Berkshire Preservation Inc. has done for Kripalu in terms of restoring the gatehouse is write a proposal. Now, in order to do that, so I wrote the proposal, but in order for me to do that, I had to bring in a stonemason, a construction company, an architect, to say what we could do and what it'll cost. And when the stonemason was there, he said, "Remember, Carol, every one of these stones was at some point carried by hand." And he said, "Look at the lintel above the door." He said, "If I measure that, the width and the depth and the height," he said, "I promise you, that piece of stone weighed 800 pounds. And other of the pieces of stone were larger and therefore weighed even more." And he explained to me how they brought a stone to a point, with oxen or with, some kind of animal assistance in a harness and whatever, and brought it close. But then men lifted it into place. And it amazes me that the fourth wall, and you described to us that was brought down when they laid
The water main.
the water main. Thank you for reminding me. And the jiggling and the digging and the whatever, the vibration and so forth. And maybe somebody hit it a little bit too.
Yeah.
Brought that down. The other 3 walls are tight and standing and sound. And I think if there were not a tree growing out of the chimney, that would be sound too.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, these people were builders. These people were craftsmen. And I wish we'd brought it. We'll do it next time. But there's a very interesting picture of all the craftsmen that worked at Shadowbrook.
I
Do you
was just
know
going to mention
picture?
that.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't have that picture in my house, but it would be in my house if I could do that. But I was looking at all those individuals, and there's probably 100 of them.
Oh, easily,
And-
yes.
And I think, well, kind of humorously, I think that each one had a stein of beer in their hand. But it was just an awesome display of talent and strength, because when I would think of how it would be done today, it would be probably precast somewhere else and installed.
Yes, and machines would move everything.
Exactly.
Moose, ladies and gentlemen, I am still Stockbridge Updates. This is still the Stockbridge Updates show, but wish my new venture, Berkshire Preservation, Inc., great good luck working with Moose and the fabulous folks at Kripalu and putting that adorable gatehouse, which always looked to me like a child's castle, putting that back together. If you want to help us, get in touch with me. You know how to do it. Carol at StockbridgeUpdates.com. Have a great day. Moose, thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Can I say one thing? Are we still on here?
No, you're off. But
Oh.
Go ahead. Tell me.
Well, I want to tell you that I live in Lenox, okay? I'm a Lenox guy. I spent most of my working career in Stockbridge, and I do get the Stockbridge updates. And I think it's the most rewarding piece of information that I could read.
Erica, you better be getting this.
I believe I know more about what happens in Stockbridge than I do in Lenox
Well, God bless you.
because
and
of your work.
I worked very, very, very hard to make that true, and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.